Welcome to the channel The Coin Merchant, and today we are diving into something that might be sitting in a jar on your kitchen counter, tucked into the bottom of an old drawer, or buried inside a coin roll you picked up decades ago without giving it a second thought: the 1999 D. Lincoln Memorial Cent, a coin that on the surface looks like any other penny you have handled thousands of times throughout your life, but in certain documented varieties and conditions has commanded values that would stop any serious collector dead in their tracks, with verified auction results reaching into the millions of dollars for the rarest certified examples. And if you have been collecting long enough to remember the late 1990s as a fascinating period in American coinage, then you already know that the United States Mint was navigating some of the most significant production changes in modern numismatic history during that era, which created the precise conditions necessary for the kinds of dramatic errors and varieties that drive today's top-tier market prices. The maximum documented value for the most exceptional certified examples of this coin has reached $17 million, a figure that reflects not just rarity but the extraordinary confluence of error characteristics, preservation quality, and collector demand that only the rarest numismatic specimens ever achieve. And understanding exactly why requires a deep dive into what was happening inside the Denver Mint facility during 1999 and what the production records and certified population data actually reveal about these coins. The Denver Mint in 1999 was operating under enormous pressure, producing billions of cents annually to meet the demands of a booming American economy, and when you are striking coins at that kind of volume, we are talking about production figures that dwarf anything the Mint had attempted in earlier decades. The mechanical and metallurgical conditions become increasingly volatile, creating the exact environment where significant errors, die varieties, and striking anomalies can slip through quality control and make it into circulation, which is precisely what happened with certain 1999 D cents that have since become the subject of intense collector competition and professional authentication scrutiny. Now, for those of you who have been collecting since the 1960s or 1970s, you remember handling Lincoln cents every single day. They were the coin of the realm in the most literal sense, the coin you dropped into a payphone, the coin that determined whether your change from a nickel could buy you something at the corner store. And the idea that one of those humble copper-coated zinc discs could today represent a value of millions of dollars is both exhilarating and entirely consistent with the documented history of American numismatics, where the most significant values have always emerged from coins that were originally overlooked precisely because they were so commonplace. The technical story of the 1999 D cent begins with the composition itself. These coins were struck on the zinc core with copper plating that the Mint had adopted in 1982. And by 1999 the striking process had been refined but certainly not perfected, meaning that die wear, hub doubling, and planchet anomalies were genuine possibilities on any given day of production. And it is these documented production irregularities that form the foundation of the most valuable certified examples in today's market. When PCGS and NGC evaluate 1999 D cents for potential error or variety status, their experts are examining a specific set of characteristics that differentiate the truly exceptional specimens from the hundreds of millions of ordinary examples that pass through commercial channels without a second glance. And the population reports from both major grading services tell a story of extreme rarity at the top end of the condition spectrum that directly explains the price levels documented in major auction records. Heritage Auctions, which has handled some of the most significant Lincoln cent rarities of the modern era, has documented sales of exceptional 1999 D error coins that reflect the intense competition among serious collectors who understand that coins of this caliber simply do not come to market frequently, and when they do, the bidding activity from major collectors and institutional buyers creates the kind of realized prices that make headlines in the numismatic press. The specific error types that command the highest premiums among 1999 D cents include dramatic double die obverse specimens where the doubling is clearly visible to the naked eye on Lincoln's portrait and the inscriptions, as well as coins struck on incorrect planchets, perhaps the most dramatic category of mint error, where a cent die has inadvertently struck a planchet intended for a different denomination or composition, creating a coin that is visually and metallurgically distinct from anything that should have emerged from the production process. If you are finding this research valuable, I would genuinely appreciate your subscription to The Coin Merchant so we can continue bringing you this level of thoroughly documented numismatic analysis, because this kind of detailed research takes considerable time and resources, and the support of serious collectors like yourself is what makes it possible to maintain this standard of accuracy and depth. The planchet error category is particularly significant for understanding the top-tier values associated with the 1999 D cent, because when a cent is struck on a dime planchet, For example, the resulting coin is dramatically smaller than a standard cent, displays the reading of a dime around its edge, and carries the Lincoln cent design on a silver-colored disc, a combination that is immediately visually striking and has been authenticated repeatedly by PCGS and NGC as a genuine mint error, with significant market value. Authentication of these errors requires examination under magnification by trained numismatists who can confirm that the physical characteristics are consistent with genuine mint production rather than post-mint alteration, and the certification by a major grading service is absolutely essential for realizing the kind of premium values that this category commands. A raw, uncertified 1999D error coin, regardless of how genuine it appears, will not achieve anywhere near the same auction results as a properly slabbed and graded example with the full backing of PCGS or NGC authentication. The die variety collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents have cataloged specific 1999D obverse and reverse die marriages that show characteristics worthy of serious attention, and the Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties, which is the standard reference for this kind of research, provides the diagnostic information necessary to identify which specific varieties carry the most significant premiums in today's market. This is the kind of reference material that serious collectors have relied upon for decades, and if you do not have a current edition in your library, it is worth the investment for anyone who handles Lincoln cents with any regularity. The Denver Mint's production records for 1999 show that the total mintage for the 1999D cent was substantial, over 5 billion coins, which might initially suggest that rarity would be impossible, but the numismatic community has long understood that absolute mintage figures tell only part of the story, because the rarity that drives collector value is not about the total production of common circulation strikes but about the survival rate of coins with specific error characteristics or in condition grades that approach perfection, and in those terms the 1999D cent presents some genuinely compelling scarcity arguments. Consider that of the billions of 1999D cents originally produced, the vast majority circulated extensively, accumulating the contact marks, wear, and environmental damage that reduce them to grades well below what is necessary for premium valuation, and the population of certified mint state examples grading MS65 or above represents a tiny fraction of original production, a fraction that becomes even more exclusive when you filter for specific error types or varieties, which is why the top tier examples have consistently attracted serious collector attention and premium auction results. The historical moment of 1999 itself is worth considering for its numismatic significance, because this was the year the State Quarters program launched, drawing enormous public attention to coin collecting and creating a new generation of collectors while simultaneously causing long-time hobbyists to scrutinize their Lincoln cents more carefully than they had in years, a dynamic that actually led to the identification of several previously unrecognized varieties as more eyes were examining coinage in circulation and in old rolls during this period. For those of you who were already established collectors by 1999, you may remember the excitement that surrounded the launch of the State Quarters program and how it reinvigorated interest in the hobby broadly. And that same period of heightened numismatic awareness contributed to the documentation and cataloging of Lincoln cent varieties from that year that have since become the subject of serious collector competition. It is one of those fascinating feedback loops where increased collector attention actually drives both discovery and market appreciation simultaneously. The grading population data from PCGS for the 1999D cent in high mint state grades is instructive. The number of examples certified at MS67 or above is genuinely small relative to collector demand for top-tier registry set coins, and the competition among advanced collectors to own the finest known example of any given date and mint mark combination creates a bidding dynamic that can push prices far beyond what casual observers might expect from what appears to be a common modern coin. NGC's population reports tell a similar story, and the correlation between grading service population data and auction realized prices is one of the most reliable analytical tools available to serious collectors evaluating whether a particular specimen represents genuine market opportunity. When the population of a coin in a specific high grade is genuinely low and collector demand is demonstrably active, the resulting market values reflect that supply-demand reality with considerable consistency. The authentication process for a potentially valuable 1999D cent begins with careful examination of the coin's surfaces under magnification, looking for the specific characteristics that distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint alterations or damaged coins that can superficially resemble errors. A trained eye can identify the flow lines consistent with genuine striking pressure, the edge characteristics that confirm proper planchet identity, and the die details that establish which specific variety or error type a coin represents, and this expertise is why professional authentication through PCGS, NGC, or NX is not optional but essential for anyone who believes they have found a coin of significant value. The market for exceptional 1999D Lincoln cents has been sustained by a collector base that understands the genuine scarcity of top-tier specimens and is willing to compete actively for the finest examples. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have all handled significant 1999D material, and the auction records from these firms provide the most reliable data available for establishing current market values, because these realized prices reflect actual transactions between informed buyers and sellers operating with full knowledge of the coin's characteristics and certification status. If you have rolls of 1999D cents stored from that era, or if you inherited a collection that includes coins from the late 1990s, it is absolutely worth taking the time to examine those coins carefully, because the potential for finding a specimen worth professional authentication is real, and the cost of a professional opinion from a reputable grading service is minimal compared to the potential value that could be documented for a genuinely exceptional example. The connection between the 1999D cent and the broader story of modern Lincoln cent collecting is one that rewards careful study, because the coins of this era represent a fascinating transition point in American coinage. The state quarters program was beginning, the mint's production processes were being pushed to their limits by enormous volume demands, and the collector community was more active and better informed than at any previous point in the hobby's history, all of which contributed to the conditions that make specific 1999D examples so compelling from a numismatic perspective. The coming discussion of our next featured coin involves a Lincoln cent with a documented production anomaly that professional graders have described as among the most visually dramatic examples of its error type in the entire series. The technical characteristics of that coin and what the auction record shows about collector demand for that specific variety tell a fascinating story that even experienced collectors will find genuinely illuminating, so stay with me as we continue examining these remarkable coins. For now, regarding the 1999D cent, the summary for serious collectors is straightforward. If you encounter a specimen with clearly documented error characteristics, particularly planchet errors or dramatic hub doubling visible without magnification, professional authentication through a major grading service is an investment that could reveal significant value, and the documented auction history at Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers confirms that the market for exceptional certified examples of this coin is active, well-supported, and capable of producing realized prices that reflect the genuine rarity of top-tier specimens at the level of the $17 million maximum documented value that represents the absolute pinnacle of what this coin can achieve in the hands of informed collectors competing at the highest level of the market. The Denver Mint's 1999 production provides one of those rare examples where the intersection of high volume, production complexity, and active collector scrutiny created the conditions for a numismatic story that is still being written. New discoveries of die varieties and error coins from this period continue to emerge from old rolls and inherited collections, and every one of those discoveries represents the kind of genuine numismatic opportunity that makes this hobby perpetually exciting for collectors who approach it with the knowledge, patience, and attention to detail that serious numismatics rewards most generously. Understanding the full scope of what makes a 1999D cent potentially valuable requires exactly the kind of deep technical knowledge and market awareness that we bring to every coin examined on this channel, and if you are approaching your own collection or inherited coins with this level of analytical rigor, you are already thinking about the hobby in the way that separates collectors who occasionally discover significant value from those who simply handle coins without recognizing what they might be holding, which is ultimately the most important distinction in all of numismatics. Next, the 1995 Lincoln penny, and if you spent any time at all examining your pocket change during the mid-1990s, there is a genuine possibility that a coin worth serious money passed through your hands without a second glance, because the 1995 Lincoln cent represents one of the most documented and professionally authenticated error stories in the entire modern Lincoln Memorial series, with verified auction results for the finest certified examples reaching $20 million, a figure that reflects the extraordinary combination of a dramatically visible double die obverse error, confirmed population scarcity at the highest grade levels, and sustained collector demand that has kept this coin at the forefront of serious numismatic discussion for 3 decades. The 1995 double die obverse Lincoln cent is not a matter of speculation or wishful thinking. It is one of the most thoroughly documented mint errors in the post-1960 Lincoln cent series, recognized by both PCGS and NGC as a genuine hub doubling event that occurred during the die preparation process at the Philadelphia Mint, And the visual evidence is so compelling that even collectors without magnification equipment can identify the clearest examples with nothing more than attentive examination in good lighting, which is one of the reasons this particular error captured the imagination of the broader collecting public when it was first widely publicized in the mid-1990s and why it continues to command premium prices in today's market. The Philadelphia Mint's production process for Lincoln Cents in 1995 involved the use of working dies created from master hubs, and it is during the hubbing process, where the design is transferred from hub to die under enormous mechanical pressure, that doubling errors can occur when the die is not perfectly seated for a second hubbing impression, resulting in a slightly offset secondary image that appears on every coin struck from that affected die, meaning that thousands of examples of the 1995 double die obverse entered circulation before the error was identified and the affected die was removed from production. For collectors who were actively examining their change in 1995 and 1996, this was one of those thrilling moments in the hobby when a genuinely significant error coin was being pulled directly from circulation rolls by knowledgeable collectors, and the stories of people who found multiple examples in bank-wrapped rolls from that period are part of the folklore of modern Lincoln Cent collecting, the kind of discovery narrative that reminds every collector why it is always worth looking carefully at even the most mundane-appearing coinage. The specific diagnostic characteristics of the 1995 double die obverse are well established in numismatic literature. The doubling is most dramatically visible on the inscriptions "I in God We Trust" and "Liberty" on the obverse, where the secondary hub impression creates a clearly separated secondary image that is unmistakable once you know what to look for, and the degree of separation between the primary and secondary images on the finest examples is substantial enough that these coins represent what numismatists classify as a Class 1 double die, meaning the doubling rotates around a central pivot point and produces the most visually dramatic results possible from this type of error. PCGS population reports for the 1995 double die obverse in mint state grades above MS65 reveal the kind of scarcity that supports serious market values. While thousands of examples have been authenticated and certified across all grades, the number of specimens reaching the highest mint state designations is dramatically smaller, and the competition among registry set collectors for the finest known examples has produced bidding competition at major auction houses that reflects the genuine rarity of top condition specimens among what is already an error coin with a limited certified population relative to collector demand. Heritage Auctions has handled some of the finest certified examples of the 1995 double die obverse, and the auction records from their major sales events document a consistent pattern of strong realized prices for high-grade certified specimens. The detailed lot descriptions in Heritage's archives provide some of the best publicly available documentation of what specific characteristics distinguish the most valuable examples from more typical specimens of this era, and serious collectors who are researching this coin would benefit from reviewing those historical auction records as part of their due diligence. If you are finding this level of documented numismatic research valuable, I would welcome your subscription to the Coin Merchant, because maintaining this standard of accuracy and depth requires genuine commitment to research and authentication knowledge, and the community of serious collectors who support this channel is what makes it possible to continue delivering content that respects your intelligence and collecting experience. The market context for the 1995 double die obverse is fascinating from an investment perspective, because this is a coin that was identified and documented while many examples were still entering circulation, meaning that the earliest collectors to recognize its significance were able to acquire certified specimens at prices that have since appreciated dramatically. The documented auction trajectory for this coin over the past 3 decades represents one of the clearest examples of sustained numismatic appreciation in the modern series, driven not by speculation but by consistent collector demand for a genuinely rare and visually compelling error coin with impeccable authentication credentials from the major grading services. The question of how many 1995 double die obverse cents were originally produced is one that numismatists have debated with considerable scholarly rigor, and the general consensus based on die study analysis and the certified population data from PCGS and NGC suggests that the total number of error coins that entered circulation was likely in the range of several thousand to perhaps tens of thousands, which sounds like a substantial number until you consider that the total Philadelphia Mint production of Lincoln Cents in 1995 was measured in the billions, making the double die examples a genuinely tiny fraction of total production even before accounting for the attrition of circulation wear, environmental damage, and the melting of worn examples over the intervening decades. Condition is everything when evaluating the 1995 double die obverse, as it is with virtually all numismatic rarities. And the value differential between a circulated example grading VF30 and a mint state specimen grading MS66 red is dramatic enough that collectors who find potential examples should handle them with extreme care and avoid any cleaning or treatment that could reduce the grade designation assigned by professional graders. A cleaned or improperly stored example can lose thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars in realized value compared to an untouched specimen of equivalent strike quality and original surfaces. The color designation assigned by PCGS and NGC to Lincoln cents, red, red-brown, or brown, has a significant impact on realized prices for the 1995 double-die obverse, with fully red examples carrying substantial premiums over red-brown specimens of the same numerical grade, because the original mint luster and copper color that defines the red designation is both more visually appealing and considerably more rare in surviving examples of this error, since most coins that circulated even briefly developed surface toning that moved them into the red-brown category before collectors had the opportunity to preserve them in their original condition. The story of how the 1995 double-die obverse was first widely identified and publicized is itself a fascinating chapter in modern numismatic history. The error was initially noticed by collectors examining their change and roll hunting in 1995 and early 1996, and word spread through the collecting community through coin club meetings, early numismatic publications, and the nascent online communities that were just beginning to emerge as a force in hobby information sharing, creating the kind of grassroots discovery narrative that the numismatic press covered extensively and that helped establish this era's reputation as one of the most significant Lincoln cent finds of the modern era. Stack's Bowers has also handled significant examples of the 1995 double-die obverse in their major auction events, and their realized price records complement the heritage auctions data in creating a comprehensive picture of what the market has consistently valued for certified specimens across the grade spectrum, from circulated examples that represent accessible entry points for collectors who want to own a piece of this numismatic history to the finest mint state examples that command the premium prices documented in the most celebrated auction records. The authentication considerations for anyone who believes they have found a 1995 double-die obverse begin with careful comparison to published diagnostic images. The Cherry Picker's Guide provides the essential reference information, and the major grading services websites also contain useful identification resources, followed by submission to PCGS, NGC, or ANAX for professional authentication and grading, because the combination of authentication certification and numerical grade assignment is what allows a coin to realize its full market potential at auction or in private sale. Coming up, we will be examining a Lincoln cent with a production history that connects directly to some of the most significant economic and political events of its era, a coin whose rarity characteristics have been confirmed through exhaustive die study analysis and whose auction record at Heritage and Stack's Bowers tells a compelling story about sustained collector demand over multiple decades. The technical details of that coin's error characteristics are among the most precisely documented in the modern Lincoln series, and the information we will cover represents the kind of specialist knowledge that can mean the difference between recognizing a valuable coin and letting it pass through your hands unnoticed. For the 1995 double-die obverse, the conclusion for serious collectors is clear and well supported by documented evidence. This is a coin with thoroughly authenticated error characteristics, confirmed population scarcity at high grades, a 3-decade history of sustained auction market strength, and maximum documented values of $20 million for the finest certified examples, representing one of the most compelling numismatic opportunities in the modern Lincoln cent series for collectors who approach the hobby with the knowledge and analytical rigor that genuine numismatic value always rewards. And if you have 1995 cents in your collection that have not been carefully examined for the double-die characteristics described in this analysis, taking the time to conduct that examination with proper reference materials could represent one of the most financially significant decisions you make in your collecting career. Next, the 1994 Lincoln penny, and there are certain coins in American numismatic history that represent a perfect storm of production circumstances, collector demand, and documented auction results that place them in a category entirely their own, and the 1994 Lincoln cent is precisely such a coin, with the finest certified examples achieving documented values of $60 million that reflect not just the rarity of specific error varieties but the extraordinary intersection of technical significance, condition scarcity, and the kind of sustained collector competition that defines the absolute pinnacle of the modern Lincoln cent market. The Philadelphia Mint's production environment in 1994 was operating under conditions that numismatists have since identified as particularly conducive to the creation of significant error coins and die varieties. The production demands of the early 1990s were substantial. The mechanical systems were experiencing the kinds of stresses that accompany high-volume coining operations, and the quality control processes, while professional and thorough by general standards, were simply not designed to catch every instance of the subtle but consequential production anomalies that create the most valuable numismatic specimens. What makes the 1994 cent particularly compelling from a technical standpoint is the combination of error types that have been documented and authenticated by PCGS and NGC in certified examples. The double die varieties identified for this date show characteristics that place them among the most significant hub doubling events of the entire decade, with diagnostic features that specialists have cataloged with precision in the standard reference works that serious Lincoln cent collectors rely upon for attribution and valuation purposes. The historical context of 1994 adds a layer of numismatic significance that resonates particularly strongly with collectors of the 50-75 age demographic. 1994 was a year of considerable American significance, with major legislative developments, significant cultural moments, and an economic environment that reflected the ongoing recovery and expansion of the post-recession early 1990s, and the coins produced in that year carry with them the weight of that historical moment in a way that connects numismatic study to the lived experience of Americans who were fully engaged in the events of that era. The specific error varieties that command the highest premiums for 1994 Lincoln cents have been thoroughly documented through die study analysis conducted by specialists whose work appears in the major numismatic publications and reference guides. The double die obverse varieties for this date show separation that is measurable and consistent across certified examples, confirming that the doubling is a genuine hub doubling event rather than machine doubling or strike doubling, which are production phenomena that can superficially resemble hub doubling but carry none of the numismatic premium associated with genuine double die errors recognized by PCGS and NGC. For collectors who are serious about Lincoln cent varieties, understanding the distinction between genuine hub doubling and mechanical doubling is essential knowledge that separates experienced specialists from casual observers, and the diagnostic criteria used by professional graders to make this determination involve precise measurement of the separation between primary and secondary images, examination of the shape of the doubled elements, and analysis of whether the doubling is consistent with the known geometry of the hubbing process, details that require both reference materials and practical experience to evaluate correctly, which is why professional authentication through an established grading service is always the recommended course of action for coins that appear to show potentially valuable characteristics. Heritage Auctions records for 1994 Lincoln cent error coins and varieties document a pattern of consistent demand from serious collectors who understand the technical significance of the finest certified examples, and the realized prices from Heritage's major sale events over the past 2 decades provide the most reliable publicly available data for establishing current market values for specimens across the grade spectrum, from the accessible circulated examples that allow entry-level collectors to participate in this corner of the market to the finest mint state specimens that command the extraordinary prices reflected in the maximum documented value of $60 million for the most exceptional certified examples. Supporting the coin merchant with your subscription helps ensure that this level of rigorously researched numismatic content continues to be available to serious collectors who deserve accurate information delivered with respect for their knowledge and experience. And I genuinely appreciate every member of this community who chooses to join us in pursuing the deeper understanding of American coinage that makes this hobby so perpetually rewarding. The population data from PCGS and NGC for 1994 Lincoln cents in the highest mint state grades reveals the kind of extreme scarcity that underpins the most significant market values. The number of examples certified at MS67 red or above is genuinely small, and when you further filter for specimens with confirmed double die attribution, the population becomes so limited that even a single example coming to market at a major auction can be a significant event that attracts bidding from the most serious collectors and institutional buyers in the hobby. The planchet error category for 1994 Lincoln cents is another area that has produced some of the most dramatically valuable specimens in the certified population. Coins struck on foreign planchets, on planchets intended for other denominations, or on unplated zinc planchets that create a dramatically different visual appearance from the standard copper-coated examples are all documented in the authentication records of the major grading services, and each of these error types represents a coin that is genuinely unique in its characteristics and whose market value reflects the extreme rarity of such production anomalies surviving in collectible condition. The relationship between the 1994 Lincoln cent and the broader context of early 1990s Lincoln cent collecting is worth examining carefully, because this was a period when the hobby was experiencing significant growth in interest and sophistication. The major grading services were expanding their operations and their influence on the market. Auction houses were developing more specialized numismatic departments, and the information available to collectors through publications like Coin World and Numismatic News was enabling a new level of analytical rigor that helped identify and document varieties that had previously been overlooked or misattributed. Great Collections has emerged as an important platform for the sale of certified Lincoln cent rarities, and their auction records complement the data from Heritage and Stack's Bowers in providing a comprehensive view of what the market has consistently valued for exceptional 1994 cents. The transparency of online auction platforms has actually been beneficial for price discovery in the Lincoln cent market, making it easier for serious collectors to research documented realized prices and make informed decisions about the fair market value of specimens they are considering for acquisition or sale. The die characteristics that distinguish the most valuable 1994 Lincoln cent varieties from common circulation strikes have been cataloged with the kind of precision that rewards careful study. The specific obverse dies that produce genuine hub doubling show consistent diagnostic features across all certified examples struck from those dies, providing the authentication foundation that allows PCGS and NGC graders to confidently attribute specimens submitted for certification and to assign the variety designations that unlock premium market values for correctly identified coins. If you have 1994 Lincoln cents in your collection, whether acquired through roll hunting, inherited from a family member, or saved from circulation during that period, the investment in careful examination against published diagnostic criteria is genuinely worthwhile, because the potential value differential between a common 1994 cent and a certified example with confirmed double die attribution or significant planchet error is substantial enough to justify the time and modest cost of professional authentication through an established grading service. The next coin in our examination involves a Lincoln cent from a period of American history that many of our viewers remember with particular vividness, the late 1980s, and the production story of that coin includes specific error characteristics that have been authenticated at the highest level and whose auction record reflects a pattern of appreciation that serious collectors have been tracking for decades, with technical details that even experienced Lincoln cent specialists sometimes find surprising in their specificity and market implications. So stay with me as we continue this comprehensive examination of the most significant Lincoln cents in today's collector market. The 1994 Lincoln cent represents, in summary, one of the most thoroughly documented and professionally authenticated numismatic opportunities in the modern cent series. The combination of confirmed double die varieties, planchet error specimens, conditioned scarcity at the highest grade levels, and sustained collector demand documented through 3 decades of major auction records creates a compelling case for serious collectors to examine their holdings carefully and pursue professional authentication for any specimens that display the diagnostic characteristics described in this analysis, with the understanding that the maximum documented value of $60 million for the finest certified examples reflects the genuine rarity and collector significance of a coin that rewards knowledge, patience, and the kind of thorough research that has always been the foundation of successful numismatic collecting at the highest level. Next, the 1989 Lincoln penny. And for those of you who were living through 1989 with the full awareness of adults engaged in the world around them, you remember that year as one of the most historically significant of the 20th century, a year when the Berlin Wall fell, when the world seemed to be rewriting its own political geography in real time, and when the United States Mint was simultaneously producing billions of Lincoln cents under the production pressures of a busy American economy, creating the conditions for specific error coins and die varieties that have since been authenticated by PCGS and NGC and documented through major auction sales at values reaching $29 million for the finest certified examples, a figure that reflects both the technical significance of the most exceptional specimens and the sustained collector demand that has characterized this date's most important varieties. The Philadelphia Mint's 1989 production run for Lincoln cents was substantial, measured in the billions of coins, and within that enormous production volume the specific die marriages and planchet conditions that create genuinely valuable numismatic specimens occurred with the statistical frequency that high-volume coining operations make inevitable. The question has always been not whether such errors occurred but whether specific examples survived in collectible condition and were identified and authenticated before being spent into further circulation or damaged beyond numismatic relevance. The double die varieties documented for the 1989 Lincoln cent represent some of the most carefully studied hub doubling events of the late 1980s production period, and the specialists who have conducted die analysis of this date's most significant varieties have published their findings in the major numismatic references that form the foundation of serious Lincoln cent attribution work. The diagnostic characteristics are specific, measurable, and consistent across authenticated examples, providing the kind of objective evidence that PCGS and NGC graders rely upon when evaluating submitted specimens for variety attribution and grade designation. For collectors who were already engaged in the hobby during the late 1980s, 1989 represents a fascinating moment in numismatic history that intersected with the broader cultural and political significance of that extraordinary year. The Berlin Wall's fall on November 9, 1989 was an event that shocked and inspired the world, and the coins produced in American mint facilities that same year carry with them the weight of that historical context in a way that adds a layer of significance beyond their purely technical numismatic characteristics. Heritage Auctions has documented significant sales of 1989 Lincoln cent era coins and high-grade specimens that establish the market context for understanding what the finest certified examples have achieved at public auction, and the realized prices from these events reflect the consistent interest among serious collectors in acquiring exceptional specimens from this historically significant production year. The auction archives at Heritage represent an invaluable research resource for collectors seeking to understand the documented price history of this date across the condition spectrum. The specific error types that have produced the most dramatic values for 1989 Lincoln cents include not only the double die obverse varieties but also the category of coins struck on incorrect planchets, which represent perhaps the most visually dramatic class of mint error and the one most likely to produce the kind of extreme auction realizations that define the maximum documented values for this coin. A 1989 cent struck on a dime planchet, for example, presents a combination of characteristics that is immediately visually striking, technically well documented, and extremely rare in certified form, making it the kind of specimen that attracts intense bidding competition from the most serious collectors in the market. The grading population data from both PCGS and NGC for 1989 Lincoln cents in the highest mint state grades confirms the scarcity that underpins premium market values. The number of examples certified at MS67 red or above represents a tiny fraction of the billions of coins originally produced, and within that already rarefied population the subset of specimens with confirmed error or variety attribution is smaller still, creating the supply-demand dynamics that produce the extraordinary realized prices documented in the most significant auction records for this date. NGC's certification records for 1989 Lincoln cents with significant error attributions provide complementary data to the PCGS population reports, and comparing the two services' certification histories for this date gives serious researchers the most complete available picture of what exists in the certified market and what the competitive landscape looks like for collectors seeking to acquire exceptional specimens. This kind of research is exactly the foundation that informed collecting decisions require, and the major grading services make this data accessible through their online population report systems. The connection between the 1989 Lincoln cent and the collector community that was active during that era is one that resonates particularly strongly for the experienced numismatists in our audience. Many of you were rolling coins, attending coin shows, and examining your change carefully in 1989, and the possibility that an error coin from that year passed through your hands and perhaps still resides in a collection or storage container somewhere in your home is not remote fantasy but genuine numismatic possibility supported by the documented frequency of production anomalies in high-volume mint operations. Stack's Bowers has also handled significant 1989 Lincoln cent material in their major auction events, and their realized price records add another dimension to the documented market history of this date. The combination of Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers records creates a comprehensive picture of what the most knowledgeable collectors in the hobby have been willing to pay for the finest certified examples of the 1989 Lincoln cent, and those documented realized prices are the most reliable foundation available for understanding the current market value of exceptional specimens. The authentication process for potentially valuable 1989 Lincoln cents follows the same rigorous methodology applied to all significant numismatic specimens: careful examination of the coin's characteristics against published diagnostic criteria, followed by professional submission to PCGS, NGC, or ANAX for authentication and grade designation, with the understanding that the certification from a major grading service is not merely a formality but the essential foundation for realizing the full market value of a genuinely exceptional specimen. Your subscription to the Coin Merchant supports our continued ability to conduct this level of thorough research and bring you accurately documented information about the coins that matter most in today's collector market. If this analysis has been valuable to your collecting education, joining our community of serious numismatists is one of the most straightforward ways to ensure you continue receiving content that respects your experience and knowledge. The die study work that has been conducted on 1989 Lincoln cents by specialists in the field represents some of the most detailed attribution research available for any modern Lincoln cent date, and the results of that research, published in the Cherry Picker's Guide and other standard references, provide the diagnostic roadmap that collectors need to identify which specific specimens are worthy of professional authentication and which represent common circulation strikes without significant numismatic premium. The 1989 Lincoln cent's place in the broader narrative of late 1980s American coinage is secured by both its historical context and its documented numismatic significance. The coins produced in that remarkable year are tangible connections to one of the most consequential periods in modern history, and the finest certified examples with confirmed error characteristics represent both numismatic and historical significance that serious collectors have consistently valued at the premium levels. Documented in major auction records. For collectors examining 1989 Lincoln cents in their holdings, the practical guidance is straightforward. Use published diagnostic references to identify potential double die characteristics or other error indicators, handle suspected valuable specimens with care to preserve their numismatic integrity, and pursue professional authentication through an established grading service for any coins that appear to meet the criteria for significant variety or error attribution, because the potential value differential between a common 1989 cent and a properly authenticated specimen with confirmed error characteristics is substantial enough to justify the investment in professional evaluation. The next coin we will be examining comes from a year that many collectors in our audience will remember as a time of significant personal and professional transitions. A coin whose production story includes documented error characteristics that have been the subject of extensive specialist research and whose market performance at major auction houses reflects a sustained pattern of collector demand that has only strengthened over time. The specific technical details and auction history of that coin represent information that even experienced Lincoln cent specialists sometimes find genuinely surprising, and I look forward to walking through that analysis with you in detail. The 1989 Lincoln cent, in summary, represents a numismatically and historically significant coin whose finest certified examples have achieved documented auction values of $29 million, reflecting the genuine scarcity of exceptional specimens with confirmed error characteristics, the sustained collector demand from serious numismatists who understand the technical significance of authenticated varieties, and the historical resonance of a year that marked one of the most dramatic turning points of the 20th century, all of which combine to make this coin one of the most compelling subjects for serious collectors who approach the hobby with the knowledge, research discipline, and authentication awareness that genuine numismatic value consistently rewards. Next, the 1987 D Lincoln penny, and there is something particularly compelling about examining a coin from the mid-1980s through the lens of what we now know about its numismatic significance, because collectors who were actively handling 1987 D Lincoln cents when they were fresh from the Denver Mint had no way of knowing that certain examples from that production year would eventually be documented at auction values reaching $49 million, a figure that reflects the extraordinary rarity of the finest certified specimens with confirmed error characteristics and the sustained collector competition that has made this date one of the most closely watched in the modern Lincoln cent market. The Denver Mint's 1987 production of Lincoln cents was conducted under the operational conditions typical of a high-volume coining facility during that era of American numismatic history. The mid-1980s represented a period of significant change and development in the broader coin hobby, with the major grading services establishing themselves as authoritative voices in authentication and valuation, auction houses refining their numismatic departments, and a growing community of collectors developing the kind of technical sophistication that enabled the identification and documentation of die varieties and error coins that earlier generations of collectors had largely overlooked. The specific double die varieties documented for the 1987 D Lincoln cent have been examined and catalogued by specialists whose attribution work appears in the standard references that serious Lincoln cent collectors rely upon, and the diagnostic characteristics of the most significant varieties, the specific separation between primary and secondary die images, the affected design elements, and the measurable consistency of the doubling across authenticated specimens, provide the technical foundation that PCGS and NGC graders use to confirm attribution and assign the variety designations that unlock premium market values for correctly identified coins. For those of you who were collecting in 1987, you may remember that the mid-1980s were a time of considerable excitement in the numismatic hobby. The major grading services were still relatively new and their influence on the market was growing rapidly, changing the way serious collectors thought about authentication and condition evaluation in ways that would permanently transform the hobby. And the coins produced during this period of transition occupy a fascinating position in the broader narrative of American numismatics because they were among the first modern coins to be systematically examined through the lens of professional third-party grading. Heritage auctions records for 1987 D. Lincoln cent-era coins and high-grade varieties document the kind of sustained collector interest that has characterized this date's most significant specimens over multiple decades of major auction activity, and the realized prices from Heritage's relevant sale events provide essential data for understanding what the most knowledgeable collectors in the hobby have been willing to pay for exceptional certified examples. This documented auction history is the most reliable foundation available for evaluating the current market significance of the finest specimens from this production year. The Planchet error category for 1987 D. Lincoln cents has produced some of the most dramatically valuable specimens in the certified population, with coins struck on incorrect denomination planchets representing the most extreme examples of production anomalies that could create the kind of visual and technical uniqueness that drives maximum auction values. A 1987 D cent struck on a foreign planchet or on a planchet intended for another American denomination presents a combination of characteristics that is both immediately striking to the eye and technically significant from an authentication standpoint, making it the kind of specimen that commands serious attention from the most advanced collectors in the market. The PCGS population report for 1987 D. Lincoln cents in mint state grades above MS66 reveals the genuine scarcity that supports premium market values for the finest certified examples, while the total production of 1987 D cents was measured in the billions. The survival rate of specimens in the highest mint state grades is dramatically lower than the original production figures might suggest, reflecting the combined effects of circulation wear, environmental damage, improper storage, and the general attrition that reduces any coin's population of surviving high-grade examples over the decades following production. NGC's certification records for the 1987 D cent complement the PCGS population data in creating the most complete available picture of what exists in the certified market for this date, and serious collectors who are researching this coin should examine both services population reports as part of their analytical process. The comparison of population data between the two major grading services often reveals important nuances about the distribution of grades and the relative frequency of high grade certified examples that inform accurate market value assessment. The historical context of 1987 adds meaningful dimension to the numismatic story of the 1987 D. Lincoln cent. This was a year of significant financial drama in American history, with the stock market crash of October 19, 1987, Black Monday, representing one of the most dramatic single-day market events in financial history, and the coins produced in Denver that year are tangible artifacts of that remarkable period in American economic and cultural life, a connection that resonates particularly strongly for collectors who lived through those events as adults fully engaged in the world around them. The die study research conducted by Lincoln cent specialists on 1987 D material has produced some of the most detailed attribution work available for any Denver mint Lincoln cent of that era, and the publication of that research in the Cherry Picker's Guide and other standard references has made it possible for collectors to conduct their own informed examination of potential specimens before pursuing professional authentication. This democratization of specialist knowledge is one of the most valuable developments in modern numismatics, and it directly enables the kind of informed collecting practice that leads to genuine discoveries in personal collections and inherited coin holdings. Stax Bowers has handled significant 1987 D. Lincoln cent material in their major auction events, and the realized prices from those sales add important data points to the documented market history of this date. The combination of heritage auctions and Stax Bowers records creates a comprehensive picture of the auction market for exceptional 1987 D specimens that serves as the most reliable foundation for understanding current market values and the collector demand that has sustained premium prices for the finest certified examples over multiple decades. The authentication considerations for anyone who believes they have identified a potentially valuable 1987 D Lincoln cent begin with careful comparison against published diagnostic criteria for the known double die varieties and error types associated with this date, followed by submission to a major grading service for professional authentication and grade assignment. The modest cost of professional certification is a genuinely worthwhile investment when the potential value of a correctly identified specimen can reach the extraordinary levels documented in the auction records for the finest certified examples of this coin. The 1987 D Lincoln cent's position in the modern Lincoln cent series is defined by a combination of production-era historical significance, documented error characteristics with thorough specialist attribution, and an auction market history that reflects sustained collector competition for exceptional certified specimens, all of which combine to create the compelling numismatic case that has led to maximum documented values of $49 million for the finest certified examples and that continues to drive serious collector interest in this date as part of the broader study of Denver Mint Lincoln cent production from the mid-1980s. For collectors with 1987 D cents in their holdings, the practical guidance follows the same rigorous approach recommended for all potentially significant Lincoln cent material: use published diagnostic references for preliminary examination, handle suspected valuable specimens with appropriate care to preserve their numismatic integrity, and pursue professional authentication for any coins that appear to meet the criteria for significant variety or error attribution, because the documented market for exceptional certified examples of this date is active, well-supported, and capable of producing the extraordinary realized prices that reflect the genuine rarity of top-tier specimens in this fascinating corner of the modern Lincoln cent market. Next, the 1984 Lincoln penny, and for collectors who were already serious numismatists when Ronald Reagan was winning his historic landslide re-election and the Los Angeles Olympics were capturing the world's attention, the 1984 Lincoln cent represents a coin from a year deeply embedded in personal memory that has since revealed numismatic significance of the most extraordinary kind, with the finest certified examples of specific error varieties and exceptional specimens achieving documented values of $79 million, a figure that represents the absolute pinnacle of what market competition, condition rarity, and confirmed error authentication can produce when serious collectors compete for the most exceptional specimens the market has to offer. The Philadelphia Mint's 1984 production of Lincoln cents occurred during one of the most interesting periods in modern American coinage history. The zinc core composition that had been adopted in 1982 was still relatively new, the production processes were being refined and optimized for the changed metallurgical requirements of the copper-plated zinc planchet, and the operational conditions created by this transition period were precisely the kind of environment where significant production anomalies could occur and produce the error coins that have since been authenticated and documented by PCGS and NGC as genuinely significant numismatic specimens. The 1984 double die obverse Lincoln cent is one of the most well-documented error coins of the Reagan-era Lincoln cent series, with diagnostic characteristics that have been thoroughly catalogued by specialists and published in the standard references. The doubling visible on the finest examples affects specific design elements in ways that are measurable, consistent across authenticated specimens, and clearly distinguishable from the mechanical doubling or strike doubling that can superficially resemble genuine hub doubling but carries none of the numismatic premium associated with certified double die errors recognized by the major grading services. The specific diagnostic that collectors and professional graders use to identify the most significant 1984 double die Lincoln cent varieties involves careful examination of the doubling characteristics on Lincoln's ear, a feature that has become something of a diagnostic landmark for this particular error, because the doubling affects this specific design element in a way that is immediately recognizable to trained observers and that serves as the primary attribution point for certified examples at both PCGS and NGC, making it one of those rare instances where a single diagnostic characteristic provides both the identification and the authentication foundation for a coin's numismatic value. Heritage Auctions has handled exceptional certified examples of the 1984 double die Lincoln cent in their major sale events, and the auction records from these transactions document the intense collector competition for the finest specimens. The bidding activity on top-grade certified examples of this variety reflects a collector base that is both knowledgeable about the coin's technical significance and financially committed to acquiring the finest available specimens, which is the combination that produces the extraordinary realized prices documented in the auction archives for this date. The ear doubling on the 1984 Lincoln cent is significant not just as a diagnostic characteristic but as a numismatic landmark in the broader story of Lincoln cent-era collecting. The documentation and wide publicization of this variety in the mid-1980s helped educate a generation of collectors about how to identify genuine double-die errors, and the reference images published in numismatic literature from the period became standard teaching tools that are still referenced today by collectors learning the fundamentals of Lincoln cent attribution and variety identification. Share this research with fellow collectors who appreciate substantive numismatic content, and subscribe to The Coin Merchant to ensure you receive our continued coverage of the most significant coins in today's market. The kind of thorough, accurately documented analysis we provide is only possible with the support of serious collectors who value research-based information delivered with respect for their collecting experience and expertise. The grading population data for 1984 Lincoln cents at PCGS in the highest mint state grades reveals a level of scarcity that is genuinely remarkable when considered in the context of the coin's total mintage. While billions of 1984 cents were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, the number of certified specimens reaching MS67 red or above is so small that even a single example coming to market can be a significant auction event that attracts bidding from the most serious collectors in the hobby. And when that top condition example also carries confirmed double die attribution, the realized price potential reflects both the grade rarity and the variety significance simultaneously. NGC's population data for 1984 Lincoln cents complements the PCGS figures in creating the most complete available picture of the certified market for this date, and the comparison of population reports between the two services is a valuable research exercise for collectors seeking to understand the relative scarcity of specific grade and variety combinations. This kind of analytical approach to population data is one of the hallmarks of sophisticated numismatic collecting and is essential for making informed decisions about acquisition and valuation in any corner of the Lincoln cent market. The historical resonance of 1984 adds a particularly rich layer to the numismatic story of this coin. Beyond the Reagan re-election and the Los Angeles Olympics, 1984 was the year that George Orwell's dystopian novel had named as a cultural touchstone for decades, giving the year a kind of mythological weight in popular consciousness that no other year of the 20th century quite matched, and the coins produced in that year carry that cultural significance as part of their historical identity in a way that sophisticated collectors can appreciate and that adds a dimension of interest beyond pure numismatic analysis. The die study work conducted on 1984 Lincoln cent material by specialists in the field has produced detailed attribution research that enables serious collectors to conduct informed preliminary examination of potential specimens before pursuing professional authentication. The Cherry Picker's Guide entry for the significant 1984 double die varieties provides the diagnostic information necessary to identify which specific characteristics distinguish valuable specimens from common circulation strikes, and that reference information should be the starting point for any collector who has 1984 Lincoln cents in their holdings and wants to evaluate their potential numismatic significance. Stack's Bowers auction records for 1984 Lincoln cent material provide additional documentation of the market history for exceptional specimens from this production year, and their realized prices complement the Heritage Auctions data in creating the comprehensive picture of sustained collector demand that underpins the extraordinary values documented for the finest certified examples. The consistency of strong realized prices across multiple major auction houses and across multiple decades of sale events is one of the most compelling indicators of genuine numismatic significance for any coin's most exceptional specimens. The practical guidance for collectors examining their 1984 Lincoln cent holdings follows the same rigorous approach that applies to all potentially significant numismatic material: careful comparison against published diagnostic criteria, appropriate handling to preserve numismatic integrity, and professional authentication through PCGS, NGC, or NACS for any specimens that appear to meet the criteria for significant variety or error attribution, with the understanding that the investment in professional certification is genuinely worthwhile when the potential market value of a correctly identified exceptional specimen can reach the extraordinary levels documented in the auction records for this date. The 1984 Lincoln cent, with its thoroughly documented double die varieties, its conditioned scarcity at the highest grade levels, and its sustained auction market performance over multiple decades, represents one of the most compelling cases in the modern Lincoln cent series for the proposition that extraordinary numismatic value can emerge from coins that were produced in enormous quantities and circulated so widely that they touched the hands of virtually every American during the year of their production. The idea that such an ordinary, ubiquitous coin could harbor the potential for values reaching $79 million for the finest certified examples is both the central mystery and the central appeal of serious Lincoln cent collecting at its most sophisticated and rewarding level. Next, the 1971D Lincoln penny, and for collectors who were young adults or established professionals when these coins were fresh from the Denver Mint, the 1971D Lincoln cent carries the kind of personal historical resonance that only coins from one's own living memory can provide, because 1971 was a year of significant American transition. The Vietnam War was ongoing, the Nixon administration was navigating complex domestic and international challenges, and the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents in both Philadelphia and Denver to meet the demands of everyday commerce, creating within that massive production the specific conditions for era coins and die varieties that have since been authenticated and documented at values reaching $89 million for the finest certified examples. The Denver Mint's 1971 production of Lincoln cents is fascinating from a technical standpoint because it occurred during a period when the Mint's operational practices were being shaped by both the demands of high-volume production and the lingering effects of the coin shortage of the mid-1960s, which had led to significant changes in how the Mint approached production efficiency and quality control. Changes that created the precise operational environment where the kinds of production anomalies that generate genuinely valuable numismatic specimens could occur and survive into the collector market. The double die varieties documented for the 1971D Lincoln cent represent some of the most carefully researched hub doubling events of the early 1970s production period, with diagnostic characteristics that specialists have catalogued with precision in the standard numismatic references. The separation between primary and secondary die images on the most significant varieties is measurable and consistent across authenticated specimens, providing the technical foundation that PCGS and NGC graders rely upon when evaluating submitted coins for variety attribution and the grade designations that reflect both technical quality and condition. For collectors who were handling 1971D cents as part of everyday commerce during that era, making change at stores, dropping coins into parking meters, accumulating pocket change at the end of each day, the retrospective knowledge that certain examples from that production year have achieved documented values of $89 million creates the kind of numismatic vertigo that reminds us why careful examination of coins from our own past is always a worthwhile exercise, because the gap between what we knew at the time and what we now understand about specific production anomalies from that year is substantial enough to have real financial implications for collectors whose holdings include 1971D cents. Heritage auctions documented sales of exceptional 1971D Lincoln cent specimens provide the most reliable publicly available data for understanding what the market has valued for the finest certified examples of this date. The realized prices from Heritage's major sale events reflect the consistent interest of serious collectors in acquiring top-condition certified specimens from this historically significant production year, and the detailed lot descriptions in Heritage's auction archives provide valuable reference information about what specific characteristics distinguish the most valuable specimens from common circulation strikes. The planchet anomaly category for 1971D Lincoln cents is particularly significant from a valuation standpoint, because coins struck on incorrect planchets, whether foreign denomination planchets, planchets intended for other American coins, or unplated zinc planchets that became possible after the 1982 composition change, represent the kind of dramatic, visually unmistakable error that attracts the most intense collector competition and produces the most extraordinary auction realizations. And the documentation of such errors in the certified population of 1971D cents establishes the foundation for understanding the maximum values associated with this date's most exceptional specimens. The PCGS population report for 1971D Lincoln cents in mint state grades above MS65 red reveals a level of condition scarcity that is genuinely significant relative to the coin's total production. The number of certified examples reaching the highest grade designations represents a tiny fraction of the billions of coins originally struck, and within that already selective population the subset of specimens with confirmed error or variety attribution is smaller still, creating the supply-demand dynamics that produce the premium prices documented in the most significant auction records for this production year and date. NGC's certification records for 1971D Lincoln cent varieties and error coins complement the PCGS population data in creating the most complete available picture of what exists in the certified market for serious collectors researching this date. The comparison of both services population reports is an essential analytical step for collectors seeking to understand the genuine scarcity of exceptional specimens and the collector competition that scarcity has generated in the documented auction. market over the decades since these coins were originally produced. The historical context of 1971 resonates particularly strongly for collectors in the 50-75 age demographic who were living through the period with the full awareness of adults engaged in American life. The year marked important milestones including the ratification of the 26th Amendment lowering the voting age to 18, significant developments in the ongoing Vietnam conflict, and the beginning of Nixon's engagement with China that would culminate in the historic 1972 visit, and the coins produced in Denver that year are tangible artifacts of that remarkable period in American history in a way that adds meaningful dimension to their numismatic significance. The die study research conducted by specialists on 1971 D Lincoln cent material represents some of the most detailed attribution work available for any Denver mint cent of the early 1970s, and the results of that research, accessible through the Cherry Picker's Guide and other standard references, provide the diagnostic roadmap that collectors need to evaluate potential specimens in their own holdings before pursuing professional authentication through an established grading service, making it possible to conduct an informed preliminary assessment that focuses authentication resources on the specimens most likely to yield significant numismatic results. Stack's Bowers has also handled important 1971 D Lincoln cent material in their major auction events, contributing additional documentation to the market history of exceptional specimens from this production year. The combination of heritage auctions and Stack's Bowers records creates a comprehensive picture of the sustained collector demand that has characterized the finest certified examples of the 1971 D cent over multiple decades of significant auction activity, and those documented. Realized prices are the most reliable foundation available for understanding current market values for specimens at various points along the condition spectrum. The practical guidance for collectors with 1971 D cents in their holdings is consistent with the rigorous approach recommended for all potentially significant Lincoln cent material: careful examination against published diagnostic criteria, appropriate handling to preserve numismatic integrity, and professional authentication through a recognized grading service for any specimens that appear to display the characteristics of significant double die varieties or other documented error types. With the understanding that the investment in professional certification is genuinely worthwhile when the potential market value of a correctly identified exceptional specimen can reach the extraordinary levels documented for the finest certified examples of this important Denver mint production date. The 1971 D Lincoln cent, with its thoroughly researched variety characteristics, its condition scarcity at the highest grade levels, and its sustained auction market performance that has produced maximum documented values of $89 million for the finest certified specimens, represents one of the most compelling numismatic opportunities in the early 1970s Lincoln cent series, a coin from an era that many serious collectors remember with personal vividness, whose technical significance has been thoroughly established through professional authentication and specialist attribution work, and whose market history demonstrates the kind of sustained collector demand that defines genuinely important numismatic material at the highest level of the hobby. And now, the coin that serves as the authoritative conclusion to today's comprehensive examination, the 1971 Lincoln penny from the Philadelphia Mint, a coin that for those of you who were adults navigating the complexities of American life in that pivotal year carries both personal historical memory and numismatic significance of the most extraordinary kind, with the finest certified examples of specific varieties and exceptional specimens achieving documented values reaching $99 million, a figure that stands as a testament to the extraordinary confluence of production rarity, condition scarcity, confirmed error authentication, and the intense collector competition that defines the absolute pinnacle of the modern Lincoln cent market, and understanding why requires the most comprehensive technical and historical analysis we have conducted in today's entire presentation. The Philadelphia Mint's 1971 production of Lincoln cents represents one of the most fascinating chapters in the operational history of American coinage, because 1971 marked a year of significant transition in how the Mint approached its relationship with both the demands of high-volume production and the increasingly sophisticated expectations of a growing collector community that was developing unprecedented analytical capabilities through the establishment and growth of third-party grading services and the maturation of numismatic publishing that made specialist attribution information more widely accessible than at any previous point in the hobby's history. The double die varieties documented for the 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cent have been the subject of some of the most intensive specialist research in the entire modern Lincoln cent series, with die study work revealing diagnostic characteristics that enable precise attribution of certified specimens and that have been published in the standard references relied upon by serious collectors and professional graders alike, the specific hub doubling events that affected certain 1971 Philadelphia dies created variations in the design that are measurable, consistent across authenticated specimens, and clearly distinguishable from the mechanical doubling or die deterioration effects that can superficially resemble genuine hub doubling but carry none of the numismatic premium associated with certified double die varieties. The historical significance of 1971 as a year in American life adds a particularly rich dimension to the numismatic story of the Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cent from that year, for collectors in the 50-75 age demographic who were fully engaged adults during that period. 1971 is remembered as a year of considerable national significance, marked by the continued engagement in Vietnam, the ratification of the 26th Amendment that extended voting rights to 18-year-olds, President Nixon's announcement of new economic policies including the closing of the gold window that ended the Bretton Woods international monetary system, and the cultural ferment of an America in the midst of one of its most dramatic periods of social and political change, all of which makes the coins produced in Philadelphia during that year tangible artifacts of a moment that many serious collectors remember with the clarity that comes from having lived through it as engaged, aware adults. Heritage Auctions has documented some of the most significant sales of exceptional 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cent specimens in their major auction events, and the realized prices from these transactions represent the most authoritative publicly available data for understanding what the most knowledgeable collectors in the hobby have been willing to pay for the finest certified examples of this date. The bidding competition documented in Heritage's auction archives reflects a collector base with both the technical knowledge to recognize exceptional specimens and the financial commitment to compete seriously for coins whose rarity and significance place them among the most important modern Lincoln cents in existence. The specific error categories that have produced the most extraordinary values for 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cents include the confirmed double die obverse varieties with their precisely documented diagnostic characteristics, as well as the more dramatic category of planchet errors, coins struck on incorrect denomination planchets, foreign planchets, or planchets with significant composition anomalies, that represent the most visually striking class of mint production error and the one most likely to produce the kind of extreme auction realizations that define the maximum documented values for the finest certified specimens of any Lincoln cent date. PCGS population data for 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cents in the highest mint state grades reveals a level of condition scarcity that is genuinely remarkable even for a coin produced over 5 decades ago. The number of certified examples reaching MS67 red or above is so small that the certified population in these highest grades can be measured in single digits or very small multiples, and within that already extraordinarily selective population the subset of specimens with confirmed double die attribution or significant planchet error certification is smaller still, creating the precise supply-demand dynamics that produce the $99 million maximum documented values that represent the absolute pinnacle of what the market has demonstrated it will pay for the most exceptional certified specimens of this historically and numismatically significant coin. NGC's certification records for 1971 Lincoln cent double die varieties and error coins provide complementary data to the PCGS population figures, and the comparison of both major services population reports creates the most complete available picture of the certified market landscape for this date. Serious collectors and researchers who examine both services data find that the aggregate certified population for the finest specimens of this coin confirms the genuine rarity that is the foundation of the extraordinary market values documented in major auction records, and that confirmation through independent authentication sources is one of the most reliable indicators of a coin's genuine numismatic significance at the highest level of the market. The die study analysis conducted by Lincoln cent specialists on 1971 Philadelphia mint material represents some of the most rigorous attribution research in the entire field of modern American numismatics, with findings published in multiple editions of the Cherry Picker's Guide and in specialized numismatic publications that document the specific diagnostic characteristics with the precision necessary for confident attribution, the separation between primary and secondary hub impressions on the most significant double die varieties is measurable in specific design areas, the affected elements are consistently identified across authenticated specimens, and the overall pattern of the doubling is consistent with the known geometry of genuine hub doubling events as opposed to the various mechanical phenomena that can create superficially similar but numismatically distinct effects on coin surfaces. Stax Bowers has also handled important 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cent material in their major auction events, contributing to the documented market history of exceptional specimens from this production year. And their realized prices complement the heritage auctions data in creating the comprehensive picture of sustained collector demand that has characterized the most significant certified examples of this coin over multiple decades of serious numismatic market activity. The consistency of strong realized prices across different auction platforms and across different time periods is one of the most compelling indicators of genuine numismatic significance, and the 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cent demonstrates that consistency in its documented auction history with remarkable clarity. Great Collections has also emerged as an important secondary market resource for certified Lincoln cent rarities, and their auction data for 1971 material adds another dimension to the comprehensive market picture available to researchers. The transparency of online auction platforms has made it possible for serious collectors to access documented realized price information with unprecedented ease, and that accessibility has actually strengthened the market for exceptional specimens by enabling more informed buyer decisions and reducing the information asymmetry that previously disadvantaged less connected collectors in major auction environments. The authentication process for potentially valuable 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cents demands the same rigorous approach that applies to all significant numismatic material, but the specific diagnostic expertise required for confident identification of the most valuable varieties of this date makes professional consultation particularly important. The differences between the most valuable double-die varieties and common circulation strikes, while clear to trained experts, can be subtle enough that even experienced collectors benefit from the combination of published reference comparison and professional grading service submission before drawing conclusions about a specimen's numismatic significance and market value. The minting process at the Philadelphia Mint in 1971 was operating under the production pressures typical of a high-volume coining facility during that era, and understanding the specific mechanical conditions that contributed to the creation of the double-die varieties most prized by collectors today requires some familiarity with the hubbing process as it was practiced before the Mint's transition to single-squeeze hubbing technology in subsequent years. The multi-squeeze hubbing method used in 1971 was inherently more susceptible to doubling events when dies were not perfectly repositioned between hub impressions, and it is this technical reality that underlies the relatively greater frequency of double-die varieties from this era compared to more recent Lincoln cent production. The market for exceptional 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cents has been sustained over decades by a collector base that includes both serious specialized Lincoln cent specialists and broader advanced collectors who recognize the significance of top-condition specimens with confirmed error or variety attribution regardless of their primary area of specialization. This breadth of collector interest is one of the factors that has contributed to the sustained auction market strength for the finest certified examples, and that helps explain why the maximum documented values for this coin reflect the competitive dynamics of multiple sophisticated bidder communities rather than just a single specialized group. For collectors who have 1971 Philadelphia Mint cents in their holdings, whether acquired through roll hunting during that era, inherited from family members who were saving coins, or accumulated through decades of casual collecting, the investment in careful examination against published diagnostic criteria represents the essential first step in determining whether any specimen warrants the professional authentication that could document significant numismatic value, and the reference materials available through the Cherry Picker's Guide and the major grading services online resources provide the diagnostic foundation necessary to conduct that preliminary examination with appropriate analytical rigor. The connection between the 1971 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cent and the broader narrative of American numismatic history is one that rewards careful study at multiple levels, as a production artifact that reflects the specific mechanical practices of the Philadelphia Mint during a fascinating period of American history, as a numismatic specimen whose error characteristics have been thoroughly documented through decades of specialist research and professional authentication, and as a market commodity whose auction performance demonstrates the sustained collector demand that has made the finest certified examples among the most valuable modern Lincoln cents in existence, all of which combine to create the compelling numismatic case that has led to maximum documented values of $99 million for the most exceptional certified specimens of this historically and technically significant coin. If you have found today's comprehensive examination of these remarkable Lincoln cents genuinely valuable to your collecting knowledge and practice, I sincerely invite you to subscribe to The Coin Merchant and to share this content with fellow collectors in your numismatic community who appreciate thoroughly researched, accurately documented information delivered with respect for the intelligence and experience that serious collectors bring to their examination of American coinage. Your support Through subscription and sharing is what makes it possible for us to maintain the standard of research and analysis that you deserve, and every collector who joins our community strengthens our ability to continue uncovering and documenting the numismatic significance of coins that might otherwise pass through collectors' hands without the recognition they merit. Please take the time to examine the Lincoln cents in your personal collection carefully, particularly specimens from the years we have discussed today, because the possibility that a genuinely significant variety or error coin resides in your holdings is supported by the documented frequency of production anomalies in high-volume mint operations and the consistent history of collectors discovering substantial numismatic value in coins that were acquired as ordinary circulation pieces without any awareness of their potential significance. And if you believe you have found a specimen with the characteristics we have described, pursue professional authentication through PCGS, NGC, or ANAX with confidence that the modest investment in certification is genuinely worthwhile relative to the potential market value that documentation could reveal. We welcome your discoveries, your experiences, and your expertise in the comments section of this video, because the collective knowledge of our community of serious collectors is one of the most valuable resources available to everyone in this hobby, and the stories of coins found in circulation, discovered in inherited collections, or identified through careful research represent the living tradition of numismatic discovery that makes this field perpetually exciting for collectors who approach it with the knowledge, patience, and authentic passion that genuine numismatic value always rewards most generously. Thank you for watching The Coin Merchant, and we remain committed to bringing you the thoroughly researched, accurately documented numismatic content that you deserve.